Acadia Commons Campus, Center for New Media, Kalamazoo Valley Museum, and Bronson Healthy Living Campus. And woo, y'all do a lot. Now, therefore, on behalf of the 54th City Commission, I, Commissioner Stephanie D. Hoffman, on behalf of David F. Anderson, Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo, do hereby recognize April 2023 as Kalamazoo Valley Community College Month in the City of Kalamazoo. Congratulations.
Just want to say thank you for recognizing April's Community College Month for Kalamazoo Valley Community College. We are honored to serve this great community of ours, to give opportunity for those to all learn, grow, and thrive. And we will continue to do that and continue to champion our work. Please support us. And also, if there's anyone that's looking for an opportunity, please send them to Kalamazoo Valley Community College. We love to serve them as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danny Alexander, for being here. As a proud alumni of Kalamazoo Valley Community College myself, who knows where you can go, right? So it's a special meeting to me. Commissioners, next thing on our agenda is the adoption of our formal agenda. Any changes that commissioners would like to see? Commissioner Pradle?
Could I, excuse me, could I please ask to remove G1 to just the regular agenda?
G1, okay. Anything else, commissioners? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to move an item from the consent agenda, which is G, to our regular agenda? All right, seeing no one, we have one change there. Next is communications. Manager Witzma.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Now is an opportunity for public comments. And so we have a couple ways to make public comments. One is we will start with people who are here in the chamber, and then we'll have an opportunity for people to make public comments by calling in. As a reminder, that number is 888-382-9556. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. It is not an opportunity when we have dialogue. This is a business meeting, so this is your opportunity to provide comments on any topic during that time and get those comments to the public record. So you have 3 minutes. Please come forward if you want to make a comment and state your name, where they live in the city.
Good evening, all. That is an email I sent to you. You probably didn't get it because you were already in a meeting. So I work with Isaac as a community organizer, lead for Housing Task Force, GVP, GOTV, Community Engagement, lead for Participatory Defense Movement, Kalamazoo. I'm writing to express my opinion for the city attorney's position. I was able to make the meet and greet and meet all 3 potential candidates and the interview process. I was impressed with Mr. Lewis Smith through the meet and greet as well as his interview. He is the only candidate that currently resides in Kalamazoo. No other candidate has made the dedication and will not unless they are chosen for the position. Mr. Smith is the only candidate committed to our city, win or lose. During the meet and greet, he also shared his willingness to work with grassroots organizations to make improvements to our city if he wasn't chosen for city attorney. He truly stood out with his answers that were rooted in equity, anti-racism. He used key words: integrity, listening, communication, dedication, and teamwork, and how he put those words into motion in his previous positions that proved he would be an asset to our city that claims to be committed to become an anti-racism organization. This was a comment by City Manager Ritzma on January 1st, 21. The City of Kalamazoo is committed to governing intentionally to create equitable and inclusive outcomes for everyone in Kalamazoo, he said. The commitment begins with understanding and acknowledging truth of our past, Ritzman said, and the role the City of Kalamazoo has played in creating and sustaining systemic racism. On April 4th, 2022, the City of Kalamazoo, at a City Kalamazoo Commission meeting, a presentation of the city's DEI assessment presented by Dorla Bonner showed that 81% of the respondents were skeptical, saying that they perceive that there is no explicit commitment to equity within the organization. These are also direct quotes by City Manager Ritzma. In the City of Kalamazoo, we are committed to doing the work to transform our organization into one that prioritizes diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our first step on this journey was to hire MPHI to give an assessment of where our organization currently stands, and the results spoke volumes. We will begin to implement MPHI's recommendations from the assessment and to help our organization become one where diversity, equity, and inclusion are not just words, but are lived and realized every day. The City Commission Board has the opportunity today to prove how invested they are in the city by hiring Mr. Lewis Smith, who would be an asset in making critical changes to begin to dismantle systemic racism within our city. We cannot continue to just speak on change. We need to implement equity and anti-racism in
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ellen Nelson, and I too would like to read an email that I sent earlier today with regards to the City Attorney. As an involved community member of Kalamazoo, I really appreciate the opportunity to be heard with regards to the candidates for Kalamazoo City Attorney. I'm a member of the Isaac and TRHT Housing Task Force, as well as a member of the Vine Neighborhood Association, board member of the Vine Neighborhood Association. Through both of these organizations, I've come to know people and hear stories that directly relate to how the city attorney performs his duties. I believe that the right person for this job is Mr. Lewis Smith. He not only has the law background and experience for this work, but he has very valuable insights for working with a variety of different groups, listening to and uplifting all kinds of voices, and understands the importance of centering anti-racism and equity within work that affects the whole community. I cannot stress enough how important Mr. Smith's commitment to enforcing the Housing Equity Ordinance is for our city. Kalamazoo pushed for and the City Commission voted unanimously for this ordinance because we believe that housing is a human right. Our current city attorney has chosen not to enforce the source of income discrimination portion of our Housing Equity Ordinance, and people in Kalamazoo have suffered as a result. I have met people over the past few years who are desperate to find housing, have vouchers or third-party donations to pay for it, and are still turned away. We need a city attorney who puts the well-being of our citizens over landlords' imagined needs to discriminate against poor people and people of color. Mr. Smith has demonstrated a willingness to listen to and work with all who come to the table, to be held accountable, to think critically, and to lift up all around him. Most importantly, Mr. Smith is willing to and able to take part in the difficult but rewarding work of pushing Kalamazoo through discomfort toward equity. The other candidates, although they appear to be kind and hardworking, lack this commitment to DEI, anti-racism, and the challenging of the status quo, which has been harmful to many. The City of Kalamazoo committed to becoming an anti-racist institution. We have a long way to go, but I believe that Kalamazoo has the ability to be an example to other cities in how to treat its people with dignity, equity, anti-racism, and compassion. It starts with having the right people on our team, and Mr. Smith is the right person. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening. I'm Pat Vingy, a city resident, deacon at St. Martin's Episcopal Church, and a member of the Isaac TRHT Housing Task Force, and I'm addressing the choice of city attorney. I wrote to all of you last week, but my choice of best candidate for city attorney has changed. I'm truly appreciative that you gave yourselves and the community more time to reflect upon the candidates. Mr. Lewis Smith has qualities and gifts that will challenge us to be our best. As a city, we have struggled with the work needed to become an anti-racist organization, and this impacts all of us. Former DEI Director Dorla Bonner stated last year at this time, if you cannot see the offenses and share the pain, you cannot be anti-racist. Of all the candidates, Mr. Smith most clearly sees, feels, and articulates with analysis this pain of systemic racism. As someone who has been impacted by marginalization, he really gets the necessity of looking at our community through the lens of equity and anti-racism. Lewis Smith's passion for justice, his lived experiences, his innovative critical thinking, and his desire to work with the City Commission to help make Kalamazoo a place of opportunity for everyone with no exception, and will certainly move us closer to the beloved community. In addition, Mr. Smith's broad municipal law experience, his previous work in Congress, and his respect for and desire to gather as much institutional knowledge as possible will be invaluable to the Commission. Challenges, be they systemic or particular, require learning about how we got to where we are. Lewis Smith's commitment to listening so that people know their voices are not only heard, but they are seen as well, will benefit us all, whether it is stakeholders in the business community, neighborhoods, or individuals. Mr. Smith will be an asset not only to the City Commission, but his passion for justice will touch the interactions with the community. I love that he believes strongly that we must start at the front end with people. The underserved community needs to be part of the process at the very beginning. I was struck by Lewis Smith's genuine passion for integrity, transparency, and accountability, all essential personal characteristics for our city attorney. In 2021, City Manager issued a statement about becoming an anti-racist organization. We understand that words are not enough, and we must demonstrate our commitment to transformational change with credible action to change policies and ensure community members are treated fairly and are truly valued. We agree, words are not enough. Tonight, we as a community are looking for this transformational change with credible action to increase trust and equity. Lewis Smith is by far the best candidate for our next city attorney. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Howdy, I'm here celebrating as well. 50 years ago this month, I graduated from Western. You can all applaud. My mother was a little surprised, but one of the things that happened, we went away to the military, we came back, my wife and I, and we fell in love with Kalamazoo. We fell in love with Kalamazoo because people care. People are willing to change. People are willing to progress. We felt that. 35 years after my career, we moved back to Kalamazoo, and we've enjoyed being here. How the things that are being represented by these people that we're speaking are important. They're the person. Oh goodness, I got a phone ringing. Oh, this okay. And I'm sorry, but. One of the things that Isaac has done has moved on to, I'm sorry, I'm just sorry.
We can't hear it, so it's not
I know
bothering
you
us.
can't. It's driving me nuts. I had to look back and say, why did I go to college? Thank you. Why did I go to college? Well, it was simple. My parents expected it. That's what white kids did. White middle-class kids, when you got out of high school, you went to college. Now, I look at what's going on in Kalamazoo and regarding that. Other kids have a possibility. Not all other kids are expected to go to school. We've got the promise for them. We've got those kind of opportunities. We've got housing. Housing is important. Providing housing gives people a chance to live someplace and then go to work. That's what it has to do with. The most important part is the equity, and equity is becoming a real issue here in Kalamazoo. I'm sorry for my disorganization because of my phone, but I really believe this is an important part, an important time to listen to these folks who have come up here and make a decision that's going to move Kalamazoo ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, City Commission. My name is Caleb Bider. I'm a resident of Ashtamo, and I'm 22 years old. I work in the City of Kalamazoo as Isaac's Communication and Marketing Lead. I also attend the Isaac and TRHT Housing Task Force meetings. I am reaching out to voice my opinion on the City Attorney applicants. I want to start by thanking you all for taking the time to hear what myself and the rest of the community has to say on this position. After watching the interviews for City Attorney, I thought there were two quality picks, Mr. Smith and Mr. Leal. Some of you may be thinking that going with the status quo doesn't seem like a bad pick, the way it's supposed to be. I mean, the status quo works for people that look like me. I have learned about the history of housing discrimination that presently impacts our Kalamazoo community members, disproportionately our Black and brown residents. The City Commission passed the Housing Equity Ordinance, which was great. Now the ordinance must be enforced equitably, and the City Attorney plays a key role in this. We need a City Attorney with a DEI anti-racism lens to be centered in their legal expertise. Mr. Lewis is in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance enforcement, while Mr. Leal gave vague answers and a lack of clear support. As commissioners, you don't just represent people that look like me. This ordinance is to help those who are currently being discriminated against. All of the city's practices and policies need to be centered in DEI anti-racism. I ask you, commissioners, who have the responsibility of representing the community, please do not settle for what has been. Please consider that the way things have been done disproportionately and negatively affected Black and brown community members. Something must change. For that to happen, we need a city attorney who will help further the city's commitment to become an anti-racist organization. This person is Mr. Smith. I ask that you hire a city attorney who has been clear in his support of enforcing the Housing Equity Ordinance and who will utilize a DEI anti-racism lens within his legal expertise. Our community needs a change. Our community needs a real DEI and real anti-racism. And our community needs Mr. Lewis Smith. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Rochelle Habeck, and I live in the city of Kalamazoo, and I hope I don't have to tell you how old I am, but it's more than 22. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in your deliberations about who you will be choosing to lead our attorney office. I concluded and sent you my comments, but I guess as someone who has served on many search and selection committees of professionals over my career, I understand, I think I can empathize with the seriousness of the decision that you face. And while Mr. Leal's steady performance over time is certainly a strong asset, I think it's clear to me that the nature of the impacts that Mr. Smith's skills and perspective can facilitate for our community make him a more compelling choice for me now. And I say that the people have already spoken, I think, well to what he brings and what that comparative is. And you're fortunate, you've done a great search, and so you have people who have competence and meet that baseline. But there's the issue of what's the right hire for now. And you've been in the fortunate position of having an incredibly steady and competent leader in the city attorney's office for some time, who no doubt leaves experienced and skillful people behind that he has hired. And I think when that happens in an organization, I'm sure you all have been part of those things, it gives you the opportunity to do something different at the stage that your organization is in. And for that to happen, it means that we need somebody who brings a different perspective and a different capacity to the tasks. And it's obvious to me and probably to you that Mr. Smith brings those things. I served for a long time on the Health Equity Subcommittee in Cradle, Kalamazoo. And we worked for a long time on health disparities, and you all have heard us talk about this. Learning about those issues clearly took us to the structural aspects of our city. All of the other interventions didn't really make a dent. It helped us understand that we had to change the core areas that impact people's lives, like housing, transportation, et cetera. But to do that, it means that we need people who understand the issues involved in a much deeper way. And this is a unique time. We have people like that right now, fortunately, on our city commission who see things. And we need people like this in other key positions in our city in order to really move us forward, to do the transformational work that would be required to achieve the vision that City Manager Ritzma articulated. So I encourage you to be bold and go for something that can carry us to somewhere new. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening to our mayor and our vice mayor, commissioners. My name is Charlotte Davis. I am the executive director of Isaac, and I do live in the city of Kalamazoo. Thank you so very much for the opportunity to lean in as community members into this process with you all. Thank you for taking time to hold and to hear from staff and community members. As you hear from community members tonight, please know that we are not simply looking for nice applicants, nor talking about the representation of different identities, because it's not about tokenizing. But we are in fact listening to we listen to what applicants said to determine whose municipal legal expertise would be centered in equity and in anti-racism. The meet and greet afforded us the opportunity to hear clearly where applicants stood on housing equity ordinance enforcement, race, identity oppression, and systemic racism. It's not enough to be impacted by systemic isms, but you must be able to acknowledge and verbalize them in order to dismantle them. There was only one applicant who did all of this, and that person was Mr. Lewis Smith. Mr. Liel and Mr. Stein, though impacted by oppression, either avoided the question, talking out time, nor stated none. We appreciate all of the good things that are happening here in our city. And we still have community members who are in dire pain and disparities. We have boards and we have ordinances in place with no teeth. So DEI and anti-racism is not fully being lived out into our city at this time. And that can begin to change tonight, you all. I want to remind you from a quote from 2018, a black gentleman who was in our housing equity ordinance, not ordinance, but listening session, and he stated, quote, "I hope that we as a collective unit, a unified unit, bring some resolve to this because I sat on a committee like this several years ago when a former commissioner was on the city commission. And I attended forums like this. And we got big promises from, oh, we're going to fix the housing. We're going to build affordable housing. And they did. And houses were selling for $250,000. Who do you know that's homeless that's sitting on $250,000? The solution can't be that difficult. We're not talking brain surgery. We're talking about affordable housing for each and every person sitting at this table and then some," end quote. These conversations that he spoke about happened sometime between 2003 and 2007. It is 2023. This is not only about housing, but it's about all of our challenges that we face here in Kalamazoo ongoing. Commissioners, we know you love our community and we appreciate that. And please don't ask us just to trust you all in your decisions. We are looking for changes through an anti-racism and an equity lens. That's what our community needs and deserves. And I'm going to pass out the rest of this to Brother Irving.
Thank you.
My name is Irving. I work for El Concilio in the Edison neighborhood. I also serve on the board of the Edison Neighborhood Association, and I also work with ISAC for the Anti-Violent Gun Prevention Task Force. We cannot keep doing the same thing so that there is no sustainable change 20 more years later and beyond. This may be uncomfortable, but please remember, those who you are serving who are uncomfortable, in pain and losing hope due to systemic injustice, Please carry that discomfort for change into your decisions tonight. This is where we can begin to change things on this journey. To continue building trust, we need a city attorney with a strong, equitable, and anti-racism lens. Again, that's not about being a person of color. It's about having a strong equity, anti-racism lens centered in your decisions and practices. The only person from the applicants who showed they can do this is Mr. Lewis Smith. Please vote to hire Mr. Lewis Smith. Thank you. Now, from my end, I thank all of you for recording those interviews. As a father of 2 young little boys, I do not have the time to show up every day, but I have time to watch those videos between cooking and changing diapers. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, my name is Matt Smith. I'm a librarian, a local historian and housing activist, and a resident of the Vine neighborhood of Kalamazoo. I'm here as well to support Mr. Lewis Smith as hopefully our next city attorney. If you think of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, you can kind of think of the D, the diversity, as kind of the first bar that people can hit. And with 2 of the other candidates, I think there's some red flags in terms of that first bar. One candidate serves Royal Oak, I believe, which is no judgment on that at all, but I don't think that meets the diversity bar, and there's a red flag with that possibly not fitting our community and demographics. I think another candidate, not Mr. Smith, also didn't want to talk about their racial identities. That's, again, a non-starter. You got to be able to talk about the diversity piece if you want to talk about the other ones. Luckily, in the candidate, Mr. Lewis Smith, we have a body of work to look at when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, anti-racism, and intersectionality. I want to just name a few of this evidence, this body of work. The first, this appears to come from his cover letter, defending a single father of 2 against wrongful eviction. Wrongful eviction work is anti-racism work. And apparently the single father had lawfully owned a gun. Maybe this was a black father, maybe not, but if it was, that's a whole nother layer of anti-racism work if you know that history. Original drafting of Detroit's community benefit ordinance. That is exciting. I remember many years ago a black woman, Commissioner Sykes Nearing, pleading with the city to create such an ordinance. Mr. Smith comes in and he says, well, I did that, I wrote that. That's exciting. Maybe Mr. Smith will come in here and kickstart that process again, or re-kick-start the process. Pun intended, if you got the joke. Third accomplishment, now we're a member of a team that wrote an LGBTQ policy for Detroit's police. Now, assuming that the policy was actually for that community in a positive way. Now we're talking about intersectional work, intersectional anti-racism work. He's got a body of work. And then finally, I just wanted to lift up Mr. Lewis Smith, was the executive assistant for a Detroit Housing Commission. He investigated residents' complaints. What an exciting time for Mr. Smith to come in. We have a relatively new housing ordinance, a relatively new civil rights board, and now hopefully future Attorney Smith can come in and support those things when they need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Andrew Chaponda. I stay in the township, but my heart is in the city. I work for Open Doors Kalamazoo, and I'm a member of the Isaac Housing Task Force, TRHT, and I'm also the NAACP Housing Chair. This evening, I want to bring also to this space the people who are in need of housing. We don't usually find them in these spaces advocating for themselves. So I'm here to say we are looking for a city attorney who will help us address some of the housing problems we have in this city. I want to acknowledge that the county and the city are doing a lot to address the housing problem. We cannot allow the office of the attorney to become an obstacle to the achievement of those housing goals. You have heard from the speakers before me how the ordinance we passed unanimously in this chamber by your predecessors has not been implemented because the person sitting in the office of the city attorney has not been forthcoming to get it done. So the issue of housing is what I was looking for in the candidates that were before you. And I have no doubt that they are all very good candidates. But from my point of view, from the people of Kalamazoo who are facing homelessness, we want a candidate that will go along to help us alleviate rather than be an obstacle to achieving those goals. When the ordinance was passed, we all celebrated. The city of Kalamazoo is currently taking credit for having a housing ordinance on your books, and yet there's been zero implementation of that ordinance. Maybe it's time to go to the website and remove that acknowledgement. We need to see an attorney. You have a historic opportunity right now to give us that attorney that will implement this ordinance now and in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wendy Fields. I stand before you as the president of the Kalamazoo branch of the NAACP. I had the opportunity to meet and speak with each candidate at the public meet and greet. I also read their resumes and attended public interviews. This position is of great importance and will guide the commission in some of its most important decision-making. This person should have a deep understanding of not only law, but DEI work, history of systemic racism, how it impacts policies, law, and practices. This person is going to be working with the City of Kalamazoo DEI officer to implement constructive, equitable changes, policies, and practices, which in turn also impacts the community at large. This person should be well aware of where we have been, where we are striving to go as a collective anti-racist city. This person should understand this work and should be equipped to take us as a city to the next level. We do not want to restart at ground zero, which has been the city's history. While all the candidates appear to be nice, knowledgeable, and experienced in different aspects of law, based on the questions I asked around race, systemic racism, anti-racism, training, etc., one answered that he attended an annual training on racism. One had a long-winded response but didn't answer the question, and one was well-versed on the subject. When I asked each of them about their racial identity, Mr. Leo told me his genealogy and referred to himself as a mutt. It took me asking additional questions before he identified as Hispanic. This statement was very concerning to me, and I was taken aback. Does this mean that mixed races by him are seen as mutts, less than, having no identity? Quite concerning given the fact that Kalamazoo has a wide population of BIPOC citizens. After meeting with some other folks, the one and only choice for most of us is Mr. Lewis Smith. The NAACP's theory of change: we are committed to a world without racism, where Black people enjoy equitable opportunities in thriving communities. Our work is rooted in racial equity, civic engagement, and supportive policies and institutions for all marginalized people. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers that would like to take advantage of this public comment time? See no one. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, has anybody called in?
All right, we'll open up the lines here. Hi, go ahead. You're live with the Kalamazoo City Commission.
Yes, hello. I wanted to talk with you briefly in regard to basically the water system.
Yes, go ahead.
With the water system. Sorry about the feedback. But we have basically a $26 million problem with our water system. And so that has created really something where there's an impasse between the city and our water system.
Do you have any other comments, sir?
Well, I'm just trying to understand why are we not spending the money where we need to in order to solve the problem so that we stop, that we are going down the road of becoming the next swamp. There's an impasse there that needs to be solved. And there's a lot of people's lives that really are dependent upon that system. And the areas where you need to be able to develop are really downwind from this water system. And so we have $26 million that needs to be put out so that we can solve our pollution and environmental problems so that kids can have a decent place to live. We have an enormous amount of land that can be developed into low-cost housing, but they're all downwind. A good example that I'm talking about there is obviously the Nazareth campus. You have hundreds of acres of land out there that could quickly be put into housing, low-cost housing. And that's where you really have to make that solution where we're talking about low-cost housing.
It's over there.
Hi, go ahead. You're live with the Kalamazoo City Commission.
Hi, my name is Tina. I live on Lake Street. You know, the area that floods. We're about ready to flood. You know, I assume because the city now has put road closed signs up all over the place. So I assume we're about ready to flood, which means we lose our furnaces when it's still cold, and nobody does anything to help us. Now you're still trying to build in the little woods next to me. You know, Lisa Wilcott always said, and so did you, David Anderson, that people always say, not in my neighborhood. It's not about not in my neighborhood. If you were in my neighborhood, every time it flooded, you would have to worry about trying to get out to go to work. Because you have to work, because you have to keep replacing your furnace, your water heater. Your ponds overflow the streets. They fill up the storm drains that have never, ever, ever been cleaned. I'm from Kalamazoo. I can verify to that. And they flood out the whole neighborhood. And you guys don't care because it's not your neighborhood. And if you want to build, please leave the little green space alone. Let our wildlife have their home. Let our wildlife have somewhere to live in our neighborhood because we enjoy our wildlife. The kids love watching the wildlife. Trees drink a lot of water. And if you want to build something, what's wrong with the old DHS building? You own it. Put 100 apartments over there and leave our little green space alone. You know, it's not about not my neighborhood. I don't care. I just don't want to flood no more. I'm tired of working 2 jobs, and no one cares. None of you care about any of your residents of Kalamazoo. You don't do anything. You try not to fix nothing. The storm drains and sewers explode all the time. Sanitary sewers explode. Our infrastructure is so old underneath the streets in my neighborhood that it doesn't work anymore. You know, please stop taking away green spaces. We are in a climate change. It shouldn't always be all about build, 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 and how big we can build. You can build at your empty DHS building you own. Just leave that little green space alone. It helps us with flooding. Why won't you understand that? You know, it's not cheap to keep fixing the same thing. How often do you replace your furnace? Mine's every 3 to 4 years. I work hard. I work 2 jobs. I barely make ends meet. And I have to keep paying this expense over and over again that nobody else does. The city won't put a new furnace in. The city doesn't pay the $1,200 to clean your basement up every time your storm sewers and your storm drains flood us. You know, all I've been asking is please leave our green space alone. Please leave our green space alone.
Hi, go ahead. You're with the Kalamazoo City Commission.
Good evening. This is Toby Hannah Davies, co-chair of the Isaac and TRHT Housing Task Force, one of 3 Isaac VPs, and a former city council member in Ann Arbor, 92 to 2000. And I do live in the city. Regarding your choice of city attorney, the Cradle Kalamazoo data is very clear. Black babies in Kalamazoo die 4 times as often as white babies in Kalamazoo. The disparity is not due to differences in access to quality health care, nor to genetic differences, nor even to differences in education or wealth. The disparity is due to the constant impact of systemic racism on the bodies of the babies' mothers before their pregnancies, during their pregnancies, and after their baby's birth. Whatever our level of privilege, we can imagine the impact of the stress on pregnant and new moms who search and search but cannot find a decent place to live, or who have to stay with friends or relatives in very badly overcrowded homes, or who have to stay in places unfit for human habitation and even pay rent for them, and who are frequently also treated as less than worthy by people in power. You have the power to help change these shameful statistics by choosing a city attorney who is committed to transforming the social determinants of health of the many residents of our city who are impacted by systemic racism, including the housing discrimination that is still rampant in our community since our housing equity ordinance is not being adequately enforced. After meeting all the candidates, reading their resumes, watching and re-watching their interviews, I think Attorney Lewis Smith shines brightly as the one who has a very impressive combination of legal expertise, lived experience of systemic racism, and willingness to use his expertise to advise you of ways to improve how the systems work and to improve the social determinants of health of many people in our city. I believe that hiring Lewis Smith will go a long way in building trust among the city, trust toward the city among Black and brown residents, and will help you and all of us live up to our commitment to turn Kalamazoo into a truly anti-racist city. Thank you very much.
Good evening. You're with the Kalamazoo City Commission. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Anderson, Vice Mayor Cooney, and City Commissioners. My name is Maggie Adams, and I reside in the city of Kalamazoo, and I'm a member of Isaac. This evening is an opportunity for elected commissioners to challenge themselves. What kind of change-maker leader are you? By now you've received community, staff, and soon commissioners' input on the selection of the next city attorney for Kalamazoo. And as Layla Sayad, an author, reflected recently in a letter, said, many people will say that they're change-makers that stand for truth-telling, justice, and liberation. Ideals that many of you in this commission I know aspire to, but may also hesitate to put into action. As a change maker tonight, though, let us all be called to live on the edge of our comfort zone, and even though it makes us uncomfortable, choose to speak the uncomfortable truths, make uncomfortable decisions, and set the uncomfortable standard for equity for the city of Kalamazoo. Specifically, it means not prioritizing comfort, yours or others, over what needs to be done to create a more just and equitable community. If we wish to dismantle years of institutional policies, procedures, and barriers, to equity, we will need to expand our capacity for discomfort over and over and over. In my opinion, there's only one candidate that lives on the edge of comfort and exemplifies the ideals we are looking for in our next city attorney as a change maker for truth-telling, justice, and liberation, Lewis Smith. The city is committed to becoming an anti-racist institution, and this journey will need a legal expert on board who embodies this way of being in themselves, in their relationships, and in their understanding of institutional racism. Lewis Smith is without a doubt this person who would move the city in this direction, even if it means shaking up a few things. In all of his answers, and even meeting him in the meet and greet, it was clear he lives and incorporates diversity, equity, and inclusion in how he approaches his life and his legal expertise. He is approachable, listens well, and wants input from all voices, which means also us as citizens. He will move the City Commission into understanding what is truly meant by transparency that does build trust for the community. So in conclusion, to the City Commissioners, I invite each of you to be a change maker tonight and live on the edge of comfort and put into action the decision that gets us out of our comfort zone, shifts our culture, and helps us achieve what this commission has set as a priority for their city in truth-telling, justice, and liberation for all citizens of Kalamazoo by selecting Lewis Smith as our next leader, next change maker, and next attorney. Thank you.
Hi, you're on with the Kalamazoo City Commission. Go ahead. Hi, go ahead. You're with the Kalamazoo City Commission right now.
Okay. Hello, my name is Ashante Collins, and I'm the lead on the Anti-Racism Task Force for Isaac, as well as the co-chair for the Campaign for Criminal Justice Transparency here in Kalamazoo. When I think about what anti-racism is, what it means, and what it should be, more times than not, it does not always coincide with the leaders of the community when it comes to equal representation and fairness for the most disproportionate individuals in a community. At this time, all of you sitting up here have the grand opportunity to go against the grain that is set for so many communities around our nation. At this time, you have a remarkable chance to do something with the power that has been given to you and bestowed upon you by the people that you represent. Choosing a city attorney that wants the best for everyone, including those who face disparities every day, is one that we not only want, but must have here in the city of Kalamazoo. An attorney that acknowledges the problems and doesn't shy away from the hard work. An attorney that understands that a popular opinion may not always be the best one. While all the candidates may look great on paper, the spirit, integrity, and willingness to be more than a good resume will always stand out amongst the crowd. Lewis Smith has shown that. He has shown that to the community you represent at the meet and greet when he wasn't afraid to be straightforward and answer the questions thrown at him on the spot. And he showed that again when he stood in front of you at the interview. Someone who looks at all things with an anti-racism and equitable lens is one we need here in Kalamazoo as we continue to do the work that you have promised us you would do when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Choosing any other candidate who has not portrayed all of these qualities to the community that you serve and that has been uplifted here this evening, and not choosing Mr. Smith, I believe would be a mistake. Whoever sits in that seat needs to be willing to do the work with an equitable heart for every individual in Kalamazoo, not just some, and I believe that individual is Mr. Smith. Thank you.
That was the last call.
Thank you very much, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, for managing the public comments. I appreciate that. Next is G, the consent agenda. Manager Wisma.
The following items are being presented for approval this evening. First is the approval of a contract with Reith Riley Construction Company for improvements to Maple Street between Park and Burdick Streets in the amount of $202,080. Next is the approval of a contract with PK Contracting for pavement marking for a not-to-exceed amount of $265,605. Next is the approval of a change order to contract with CHOP Tree Services in the amount of $311,520 for services provided in response to the 2023 emergency winter ice storm. Next is the authorization for the city manager to enter into contracts with ice control salt suppliers as awarded by the state of Michigan for the 2023-2024 winter season requirements in an amount not to exceed $500,000. Next is the approval of a contract extension with Ferguson Waterworks to provide Neptune water meters in the amount of $800,000. Next is the approval of a contract with SWT Excavating for construction of the Big Rock Water Main Extension in the amount of $823,011.37. Next is the adoption of a resolution setting a public hearing for May 1, 2023 to adopt the program year 2023 action plan as required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Next is the approval of an agreement with Southwest Michigan First for a sub-grant award in the amount of $500,000 for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation's revitalization and placemaking program to support Phase 2 redevelopment of the Kalamazoo Farmers Market. Next is the approval of an agreement with the Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services for a grant in the amount of $696,000 from the Healthy Homes Supplemental Funding for radon and air quality remediation. Next, the approval of a memorandum of understanding with Kalamazoo County Land Bank for the demolition of the former bingo hall structure at 328 East Stockbridge Avenue in an approximate cost of $885,000. Next is the authorization for the city manager to sign a Metropolitan Extension Telecommunications right-of-way oversight Act right-of-way permit with Level 3 Communications, LLC. And finally, approval and acceptance of public utility easements with Kindle Electric Incorporated, Abbey Farms Development, LLC, and Pavilion MRD, LLC for water main installed as part of the Abbey Farms Development Project.
Thank you very much, Manager Ritzma. Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 2 through 13 and authorize the city manager to sign all related documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Juarez,
Second.
supported by Commissioner Hess. Clerk Borley, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes, I'm just going to abstain from item G, G8 as the nature of my employer.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes, and I will abstain from G11, and I wanted to bring a note for G13 that we review the dates on those easements for signatures.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Now we're on to our regular agenda. Manager Ritzma.
Item H1 is approval of an agreement with Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services for a grant from the lead-based paint hazard reduction program in the amount of $3,522,609.65 for lead-based paint remediation. And we have a brief presentation this evening from our Housing Development Supervisor, Sherilyn Parsons, I believe, or someone from Community Planning and Economic Development, and our Director, Antonio Mitchell.
Welcome, Sherilyn Parsons and Antonio Mitchell.
Thanks. So I didn't come prepared for a presentation. This also was presented to the commission in March for the acceptance of the award. So we did talk about it at the March commission meeting. This is because we did not have the agreements ready at that time, so we brought forth the agreements. There was some questions at that commission if the commission could just review those. So we brought those forth today so that you could see those. We brought the agreement or the award first because we have some due diligence pieces that we have to do with HUD regarding environmental reviews. So we didn't want to delay the process of getting this award active or activated. So this is for lead-based paint remediation and or abatement in 126 homes. This was a grant that the City of Kalamazoo and Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services applied for in partnership with one another. Our first grant of this nature was almost 4 years ago where we entered into that partnership. We are just drawing to the end of fully expending that grant. That was a $1.9 million grant, and so KNHS has worked over the last 4 years to build capacity to continue this much-needed service in the City of Kalamazoo.
Thank you so much, Ms. Parsons. Questions for staff on this? I know we had some conversation about this before. No questions? Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Parsons. And so my question is, I was kind of reading through the agreements and the paperwork, and do you know about how long it takes to mediate lead in a home?
Yeah, so that is really dependent on the amount of lead that is found within a home. I mean, it could be just stair treads, and that's all that would be addressed. It could be walls, exterior, interior, stair treads, the whole gamut. So that would obviously take longer. We also do have, in our first grant, we found that we had limited amount of contractors who have the necessary certification and license to address lead. And so we've partnered with the state to offer training in April in conjunction with Michigan Works. And I am happy to report that as of last week, we had 6 people interested in the training, and over the weekend, we did some mass marketing, and the state reached out to us today and said, well, we now have a good problem. We have 50 people signed up for that training. So we'll go through that, but the lack of contractors who had the licensing necessary certification would delay it, but we're hoping to address that timeliness in this next grant.
Okay, the reason I ask is because I was looking for like a specific time frame. I know there's allotted 10 days for
relocation. Relocation.
So what happens to an individual after that 10 days?
Yeah, so through the award, what we really ask for first is that people reach out and stay with family members, that they tap their network first if there is lead issues, because when we really want a family to relocate is when the work is being done, when things are being tapped into and dust is flying. So when it's just notified of the lead hazards, then at that point we are asking that families reach out to those they know.
Okay, so again, I'm just doing this for the public in case they have to go through this, because again, this is a voluntary thing that families can do.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to ask them to reach out into their family members, they will be compensated for those 10 days for staying with those families. Is that correct, or is that?
The relocation period carries a compensation period, or compensation. So the 10 days do, but the whole time a family chooses to be out of their home is not covered through the grant.
So if it takes maybe 20 days and they have no one to stay with, what do they do then?
So typically when a project starts, the delays, we're not seeing the same delays. So if a project does take longer than the 10 days, we do have the ability to reach out to HUD and get special exceptions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Other questions? Commissioner Juarez.
So, and the lead abatements, even in the past, in the partnership, where have those abatements taken place? In what neighborhoods mostly?
Yeah, so mostly in our core neighborhoods. So anywhere where you have a concentrated homes of 1978 or older, we're going to see that. So we're seeing it in all over, but in the core neighborhoods is where our focus was.
And so in order to take advantage of these resources, you have to be a homeowner, correct?
No, great question. No, you could be a a tenant, you have to have a child under the age of 6. And as long as the landlord agrees, then the work can be done on rental units as well. Thank you for that question.
Other questions, team? All right, seeing no one, thank you so much. Appreciate your work. Now is an opportunity for everybody in the audience to comment on this item. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the lead remediation grant? So, seeing no one at this point, then commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to approve. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Juarez. Discussion, commissioners. Commissioner Praedel.
I just wanted to share how sincerely grateful I am that there's this funding and this level of funding. I mean, you know, for 126 families in our community, this will be one more opportunity to make sure that young people in our community have a safe home to grow up in. And 126, I mean, it's possible there, I suppose there could be even more than that if the average per household is less. But, you know, I also wanted to make sure to not diminish, because it was in the consent agenda. We also approved just now $696,000 for air quality improvements, things like radon, ventilation, air quality type things as well, which is also a big deal. So both of these things happening tonight, when you think about things like radon, you know, you can see in the packet how it talks about how a home with high levels of radon is equivalent to basically smoking a pack of cigarettes a day in terms of your health impacts and lung cancer. And so it's a really big deal. And it means this, really especially means a lot. I'm working with one family in particular right now in my day job, a mom, expectant, with 2 small children, trying to work on their house right now with family members, and lead dust coming in the entryway. And as, you know, the people are going through, working into the different rooms, I can promise you, if you were to test that flooring, that those particulates of lead are tracing throughout that house. And, you know, we were able to at least kind of coach and say, okay, until we can refer you to KNHS, you know, this would be maybe a way to do things a little bit safer. And I'm telling you, it is an issue that we need to take seriously as a community, and this is a great step forward in that. So I'm so relieved to see this happening, and I thank both city staff and KNHS for their work and leadership to make this happen. So,
thanks, Commissioner Praedel. Commissioner Juarez.
Yeah, I think this deserves, you know, just that celebration, because even being in my position, I had a chance to do some remodeling to my house, and I had to go and get certified, me and a group of individuals, when we were working through this program. To get certified, it's very difficult. It's hard. It's not easy. You got to know certain degrees of math that, you know, just sometimes are complicated. But, you know, going through that process and getting that license to do lead abatement was just dignifying for me, right? Like, it brought dignity to me to be able to support my family in that fashion. And some projects, Commissioner Decker, can take anywhere between 2 weeks up to 6 weeks. It depends on the totality of what's being done. But the reason I say this should be celebrated, because when we think about DEI, when we think about, you know, systemic racism lens, and we think about the work that's being done, and being a city that can say by 2035 we will have no more lead pipes, right, for drinking water, right, that we're doing that in our core neighborhoods is huge, right? And even this project is huge. And seeing the amount of money and work being put into our communities that are mostly affected by these things, right? And so I, for one, just want to celebrate this happening, because I truly believe it's going to save lives, right? It's going to save lives, not just now, but for the future. And so thank you, those who are working on this project and this program. We just thank you for keeping that in mind, right? Having people who can have that mindset about how about this, or how about this, or how about this, is really good to have in our community. So thank you guys for working on that.
Thank you. Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to approve. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney.
Mayor.
Oh, did we already do that?
Yeah.
Oh,
So we
okay.
did.
Thank you. Who made the motion then, and
I did.
you did? Who did?
No, I made the motion and then.
Oh, the last.
Super. All right, great. So we're actually really in discussion time now then. Guess who I asked whether we had done that? I won't say his name. All right, so other discussion then. All right, I just wanted to say one thing, is that this is a grant-funded opportunity of the city. And the only way that we avail ourselves of these kinds of opportunities is having people not only at the city, but in our nonprofit partners who are watching for the opportunities and willing to take the extra time and make the effort, even though they are very, very busy people, to apply for these. You might remember a few years ago when we got our first one, that was really a high bar to get over. A lot of work happened to get ready to do that. And here we are, having accomplished that, and moving on to our second one. And that only happens, thank you, from having great community partners like Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services and, of course, our own internal city team. So appreciate all that work. Clerk Boylan, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The item is approved. We have another item now on our regular agenda.
Approval of a contract with Smith Group for design and planning services related to the downtown placemaking design project in the amount of $178,950.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. So did you intend to have, I was on the consent agenda, but maybe we'll start with a question, Commissioner Pradel.
I was just to be safe, I moved it just because there was a procedural question, but I feel confident we're good now.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Does anybody have any questions now on this particular activity here on the commission? No, it's on a regular agenda. All right, well, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to approve. Is there a motion? I'll remember it this time.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess, supported by Commissioner Decker. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, Clerk Boylan, please call the roll.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
So this is now on the regular agenda. I should have asked whether anybody in the audience wants to comment on this item.
Nobody.
Seeing no one will continue. Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next on our agenda is City Manager's Report. Manager Ritzma.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And a couple things tonight. First, we've got a lot of great work happening in Kalamazoo this week and in the near future. As you all may realize and hope, we are heading into spring, so those types of things begin again, and that includes construction. So work is starting today to repave a section of West Michigan Avenue, otherwise known as Stadium Drive, near downtown. We have curbside brush spring cleanup collection that starts today. There are also 2 drop-off days of bulk trash material at Republic Services on Gembrit Circle this week, Wednesday and Saturday. We have registration for Kalamazoo Parks youth programs that start today for city residents and next Monday for non-residents. And hydrant flushing starts Sunday, April 16th. So details on all of these events and activities can be found on the city's website at kalamazooCity.org. Also want to call forward our Public Services Director, James Baker, and he's going to provide an update on odor task force, and he also has a special guest this evening. James?
Welcome, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma, Mayor, City Commission. I'm joined here tonight by Mr. Darren Riley. Darren is the co-founder of Just Air, and we're going to be talking about that tonight. Darren's got a presentation that's going to accompany my presentation here shortly to talk about some next steps, some real revolutionary products that we're bringing out to really increase transparency in air monitoring in Kalamazoo, as well as relatability for folks in our neighborhood. So it's pretty exciting. So just to kick off, an update on the odor task force, a quarterly update items. You'll have a report in your packet. If you click through those links, that will take you to our city website. And then there's a tremendous amount of additional information there as well. So what we wanted to talk about tonight is, really just kind of provide a background of all the work that we've been doing to date, some of the mitigation projects and items that we've completed, items we're working on, and then future items that we're going to work on here in the future. So just a recap of Odor Task Force. That's been kind of a group that's been working to mitigate odors and look for solutions for a number of years now, and we've had a lot of success. This group is a technical focused group, and it's got staffed by experts in our respective areas. You're just kind of looking at some highlights of projects done within the wastewater treatment plant. The wastewater treatment plant now has a carbon odor control scrubber system that is in place and operational. All units were operational as of June of 2021. We also have completed our centrifuge project. We talked a little bit about this at our last meeting when we started talking about sludge, but we have a process now that is entirely contained where, the sludge goes through this process. We also have odor control that's implemented within this process as well. And this was completed and online as of April of 2022. Some very recent work. This is a passive carbon scrubber installation that's on one of our river interceptors. This location is, if you know where like Ray and Ampersea is, just north of Gold Street, on the west side of Riverview, on the south side of the river, just south of the park that's there, Verberg Park. And so this unit is over top of a large diameter sewer. Underground there is a 78-inch diameter sewer, and that carbon scrubber unit is scrubbing air from that sewer and treating it within those vessels. So this is something, that picture is very recent. I believe that was from January. Another project that we've got kind of in the queue that's going through design. It will then go through, permitting and construction with the goal to begin project construction in Q3, so this fall, is the GPI pipe reroute. And so if you go to our Odor Task Force materials that are online, we've got detailed plans and specifications for this project that show you cut views, profile views of exactly what we're trying to attempt here. And really all this, what we're doing is we're slowing down the flow of the sewer. We're eliminating these chambers, industrial chambers that were the subject of a lot of concern for odor mitigation that was going off-site, and that we're creating smoother velocities and flows to convey GPI discharges to the wastewater treatment plant. The profile of the sewer is shown there on the screen, you kind of see it, and this sewer would be all enclosed. So there would be no part of the sewer that would be able to transmit air outside of the treatment plant. So that's something that we're working on right now. Some other improvements that have been happening over at GPI includes that there's been some work in progress is the introduction of oxygen into their process. So we've known for a long time that hydrogen sulfide odors can be generated when there's low or no presence of oxygen in the wastewater stream. And so there's a chemical process that happens where H2S is generated. So it's kind of like a fire triangle, right? You've got fuel, you've got heat, you've got oxygen. You need those three ingredients to make a fire. Well, with odors, to make hydrogen sulfide, you've got to have no oxygen or low oxygen. So we can kind of intercept that chemical process, if you will. If oxygen is in the waste characteristics, then there cannot be hydrogen sulfide generation. So at the source, at the graphic packaging clarifiers, we're looking to implement oxygen feed into those systems. So this is something that is being carried on by Graphic Packaging International. We've actually just received through site plan their plans to construct their oxygen generation facilities and their oxygen storage vessel just north of their clarifier there. So you see a lot of work that's been progressing steadily over the last several years, kind of touching off with stuff that we're just ready now to implement. We're going to talk now a little bit about a lot of the various technology advancements that we've got to monitor odors, to provide some empirical data that can provide some, rational indications of where, odors are trending up or down and what we're doing to resolve those. The EnviroSuite platform is kind of our main platform to track and monitor odors throughout the community. We now have 11 community sensors out there. If you make an odor observation in Kalamazoo, so if you go to our website, fill out the information for if you smell or experience an odor in Kalamazoo, that information is stored and data logged in EnviroSuite. It's also tracked, so there's a trajectory that occurs that figures out where the possible sources of that odor could have come from, could have originated on, is coupled with weather data. And that information is also sent to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and EGLE. So this is all tracked within that EnviroSuite website. So we would encourage anybody that experiences an odor is to fill out the online form on our website, and that's available. We also have a new program that's out in our system. We call it the Smart Sewer program. And so there's a lot of capability here with the Smart Sewers program. One of the items that we've been using it for is to identify and respond to sewer backup and sewer overflow occurrences. We've got real-time depth monitors in the sewer and in critical areas such as where siphons are located. We're in real time measuring the depth of the sewer, and if the sewer starts to back up or depth increases, it can send an alarm and send crews out to respond. So we've had several occurrences where we've been able to intercept a sewer backup event and prevent it from happening. So we've been very successful with that program. As of right now, we've got about 80 level sensors out there. And another program that we have is some of those sensors have in-sewer hydrogen sulfide monitors. And so if you read the Odor Task Force report, you'll see that we're talking about some investigation that we're doing along the Davis interceptor, and we're measuring in-pipe hydrogen sulfide concentrations. We're going up pipe, and we're trying to identify industrial sources that could contribute to that. And we're also trying to identify flow relationships that could contribute to that. So that provides additional information for us now underground in the sewers that we can then respond to either with like a passive carbon scrubber unit, which you saw in those previous slides. We could deploy one of those and install those relatively easily within, say, a year of discovery. And we also have then the ability to work with our industrial dischargers to better manage flow and just respond to flow, in a more beneficial way, if you will. Just talking on some of the odor studies that have occurred, there was an odor drone study that happened early in May of 2022 that then prompted us to do some in-depth study of formaldehyde. Really looking at workplace safety and health. We had a industrial hygienist that came in and did some investigation with that. EGLE then also came and did their own more sophisticated testing with formaldehyde in the community. So there's a link that you can get to that, and we've got links to all this information that you can go explore for yourself. Essentially, what EGLE concluded is that there's higher formaldehyde at the fairgrounds than that there is at the wastewater treatment plant. So, and that we're at the wastewater treatment plant below any MIOSHA regulation for workplace safety and health. So That was a good exercise to identify something, track it down, study it further, and get some more information on it. So, with that, it kind of concludes our OTF update. And I'm going to pass it off here to Mr. Darren Riley to go into Just Air. It's kind of our next step for, again, transparency and data and relatable data that community members can then use to their advantage. So to you, your slides should be a part of this.
Thank you, Director Baker, and welcome.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me. My name is Darren Riley. I'm the CEO of a startup here called Just Air. Our whole mission is simple, is to make sure that every person, no matter where they're from, where they're born, what's their background, that we have equal access to clean air. Just Air was really founded in my experience, both professionally, my background's in tech, building products around hard tech, IoT devices, think about monitors, sensors, a lot of the stuff that James just discussed. But also mirroring my real experience, right? Coming from family members, from formerly incarcerated family members who have to struggle with asthma, have to do manual labor where they have a lung that can't support them, right? And myself actually being diagnosed with asthma. From and currently live in Southwest Detroit, right by the Gordy Bridge. I developed asthma 5 years ago, which really sprung me into this work around 2020. So yeah, I'm happy to share. Well, first off, thank you all for the support and also bringing me to this partnership, and excited to work with the team to really make sure that we have that data so we can drive from awareness to actual action, so we can make sure we have a healthy environment for all. Before we get started, one fun fact that I think everyone often knows, a good dinner fact, is that we all take 20,000 breaths on average per day. This is important because depending on where you are, where you live, and where that breath is taken, has a strong indicator of what your outcome of your health is. This is an example of that from Chicago. People may be familiar with Cook County. The southwest side of Chicago have the highest rates of asthma and patient hospitalization from ages 1 to 19. This is important math to show because I'm really kind of describing, hey, those 20,000 breaths being taken in those communities that are often black and brown have a unfair burden on that community and those children who are developing there. I talked a little bit about my experience already and dealing with asthma and really seeing my father struggle with this issue growing up. But this is a huge problem. I heard a lot of environmental issues being discussed here. But for the U.S., air pollution costs the U.S. $600 billion annually, right? What is underpinning that? That's kids missing days at school because of asthma, right? People missing days in the workplace because of pulmonary disease. The cost of someone dying 10 years earlier than they should when they can provide food on the table for their families, right? And most of all, as we already see in Ohio, which is easier for me to talk to, what is the cost of actually cleaning up an environmental risk, right? So the more we get ahead of it, the more proactive, the more preventative, and the more money we have in our pocket as a community to do the right things and provide for our families and communities. So really excited. Our platform is really straightforward. We do whatever it takes in terms of technology to make sure that we provide accurate, clean access to the data and be transparent with the community. But number two is leveraging that data for long-term action and response, which I'm here to work and collaborate with you all on. I will show you a quick sample of our tools, starting with our community monitoring. This is a sample project of some of the community workshops we've done in Southwest Detroit. It's like a family reunion, a lot of my aunties down there. What we really showcase is our public dashboard. So what you see here is a sample of that dashboard in Detroit where people have access in real time to a local monitor. This is very important because monitors that you may see on your phone is really pulling from the closest reference monitor, and that local closeness to the monitor, the more accurate it is, right? So if I step outside and I see a truck driving, I look at my phone and it says my air quality index is good, I would suspect that maybe that data is not as accurate. And our folks at Eagle and air quality experts in the U.S. have determined that to be true. The other part of our product is that we allow citizens or residents to sign up to receive alerts when things are bad, but also when things are good. I was taught and raised by environmental justice advocates that if you're going to say the world's on fire, make sure you give people a fire extinguisher. So we're going to not only tell you when things are bad, but hey, here are some behavioral things that you can do to avoid exposure and risk to make sure you protect yourself and your family for long-term health impact. So this is our bread and butter, our staple, our community monitoring. And this is a little bit more of the back end where we'll be working and collaborating with our partners here to make sure we look at the trends on a quarterly basis and what things we can do to intervene to make sure that we're driving numbers down. Again, what do we do with Just Air? So we have it was here. We have the data. We have information. We know something is wrong. So what do we do about it? I look at it as 3 pillars, starting from the lowest hanging fruit, which I mentioned, creating awareness, right? Having data and information so you know what to do to protect yourself. Think about a big snowstorm coming. That will alter what you do the next day. Should I get groceries now? Should I not take that long trip? Same thing with air quality. Hey, should I go play outside? Or hey, should I roll my windows up if I can afford AC? Environmental change. Where should we prioritize electrification of school buses? Where should we prioritize tree canopy? Where should we pay attention to trucking traffic routes, et cetera? So looking at what things can we do in the environment to alter and better improve and relieve the burden for certain overlooked communities. And last but not least, policy. This is our North Star. Once we have a lot of data, we estimate a year's worth of data, we can really start informing policy, but also using our data to enforce policy like cumulative impact law, which I'm happy to answer questions on, and other ordinances that can be supportive that you all may have ordinance around. The goal with this project and pilot, I'll probably wrap up here, we're deploying 8, we're thinking about expanding that 8 monitors in collaboration with the city here. We're going to have at least, I think we'll have more than that, 30 community members signed up, receiving alerts, testing the system, giving us feedback, and meeting quarterly with a coalition of community and also the city to look at the trends and see how we can work together on the same team to make things better. But yeah, that's us. Really excited to be here. I'm really centered in this work. I love what I've heard tonight. It's really cool to work with communities and city partners such as yourself that are aligned in this vision to make an equal and equitable breathing environment for everyone. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Appreciate it. Any questions? Well, Mr. Riley's here.
Just,
No?
when are these up and working now, or when are they going to be available?
Absolutely, good question. So we're aiming for the end of May. So monitors are now going, we're working to first we have to co-locate and calibrate the monitors at the closest weather station. So working with Eagle, we have good partnerships there to give us access. We do that for 4 weeks to make sure our data is accurate with all the monitors, and then we deploy those at the site. So our deployment date, we're looking at the end of May.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Commissioner Morales, yes.
What's the difference between the monitors that are going to go up and the monitors we have now in place?
Absolutely. I can speak to that. 2 things. One, the different pollutants that we're measuring. We're not measuring S2H, I'm a little dyslexic, sorry. We're measuring PM 2.5, so we're focused on particulates and ambient air quality. We also measure temperature and humidity, so we can also look at microclimate data in our database as well. And also, this is very important because it's really around the spread of a certain pollutant. So you imagine certain gases are a little bit more dense, so H2S or certain gases may be a little bit closer. We're looking at more ambient things that in a breathing environment. So the different pollutants and the tool and system that we're having, that we're leveraging here, has that interface to make sure that communities are getting data and information to alert system in action to take place. So a little bit different in terms of delivery and also pollutants we're measuring.
Okay.
Other questions, team? All right, thank you once again, appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Nice to have you in Kalamazoo. Thank you, Director Baker. Anything else, Manager Ritzma?
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right, thank you so much. All right, now we are down to unfinished business. So just a reminder that we are now in our second round for looking for a city attorney, and we had an opportunity to have interviews and have public watch those interviews as they were recorded. There was a community opportunity for individual meeting in a more informal session. And of course, then we've received packets that have included resumes and cover letters, that sort of thing, from 3 candidates that we have for our city manager job. Just another reminder for the community, I'm sorry, city attorney, not you yet, Jim, and just as a reminder, there are actually only 5 positions at the City of Kalamazoo that actually report to the City Commission. And at this point, 4 of those are active, and 1 of them is through contract. And so this is one of the very few hires that we make directly. So here we are, Commission. I'm sort of looking for some direction on how folks would like to start. Do you want to start with some just general discussion on our options here? Just as a reminder also, we do have ballots that have 3 names representing our 3 candidates, and our clerk Borling has those ballots. So that is something we can also do, so you could pass out ballots and we could check boxes, rank on those ballots. We could go through that process. We could, express our feelings on the topic here first before we start that. Any general inclinations here?
I think we should talk about what we're thinking.
Okay, that sounds good. You suggested it. Do you want to start, Vice Mayor Cooney?
Sure, I'll start. So, first of all, I want to say that I think that we had 3 very fine candidates. I think Mr. Steins didn't quite have the experience in municipal law that would have made him a viable candidate. But he was exceptionally bright, and I think he would have learned pretty quick. But I think the other 2 were superior. I was very impressed by Mr. Leal. I really admired his life story. He came from a family where his father worked in the field, and I thought that he really has come a great way. The success that he has, I thought, was really important. And he certainly has the experience. So, for me, there are 2 things. One is competence. And I thought that Mr. Leal and Mr. Smith both had the competence. They had the expertise in law which would enable them to fulfill the challenging responsibilities of the city attorney's office. I think there's another consideration, and that is goodness of fit. And I try to say, what does the city need in this office now, at this time in our history? And I thought that we need a person whom the community recognizes as someone who understands what it is to be in struggle. A person who has a record of working for the marginalized and a passion for justice. And I believe clearly that Mr. Smith has evidence in the work he has done in the past, working in health, mental health, substance abuse, working with a housing coalition on landlord-tenant issues, working as a liaison between the city of Detroit and the neighborhoods, developing a community benefits program there. He has a record of social justice work. I think we need someone who has a familiarity with the issues that we're facing in the city, like housing, poverty, environmental challenges, and police community relations. And I think that Mr. Smith had those. I think we need someone who is a representative of the city, a person who is the face of the city, whom the city can see, people in the city can see as welcoming and caring to them in the community. Someone who would be a role model for young people. And so when I look at all those things, I believe Mr. Smith has the qualities, and that would be my choice.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. Other thoughts? Commissioner Morris?
Yeah, sure. I have a lot of, just making this decision from this position is a lot. And I think part of the mindset that we have to have when we make these decisions, we take into account the gravity of that, right? And the responsibility of that. And I think that this commission has just time and time again been at the front of trying to do what's right, regardless of our disagreements or our points of views or our backgrounds or whatever it might be. Trying to do the right thing for the city, right? And so all three candidates, good candidates. When it comes to figuring out what we need in the city, and I think this is very important for the community to know, is that, like Vice Mayor Don Cooney talked about, being competent in the job, right? Knowing how to do the job. Mr. Aaron has that experience and is coming from that experience right away. Mr. Smith had some time off and he's getting back into the game. No doubt they both have a good track record in some of the work that they have done, right? Environmental stuff, housing stuff, and it's difficult for me to say that only one of them could do the job. I've heard in emails and comments tonight that the only person that could do the job is Mr. Smith, or the only person that's right for the job is Mr. Smith. I beg to differ, because the city attorney's position is super important in understanding municipal law. Where we see the issue with things getting done in a racial or in a like restoration way with racism and systematic racism, housing ordinances, and these things are issues that need to be represented from the dais between the commissioners. The city attorney reports to us commissioners and the mayor, and he takes our lead, right? We say, city attorney, we need you to do this. He says, I can advise you in these things. This might be the right direction, this might not be. These are the options. Now, I think a lot of the issues that exist in our city and that can be dealt with come from how we manage the city attorney. And though I believe that the two qualified individuals, Mr. Smith and Mr. Aaron, could do the job, it's up to us as the city commissioners and the mayor to make that known, what we want the city attorney to be doing, right? Now, let's say if the city attorney doesn't want to do what we ask him, okay, second time, and then we have an issue, right? Then it's up to us to remove that city attorney from his position. It is up to us to make that decision, right? And so I feel like a lot of the issues that are being brought up when it comes to racism or housing, or we have to do a better job as city commissioner, as the mayor, as the vice mayor, to be the lead in that, right? That's our job. We tell the city attorney, this is what we want. He then advises us. Now, I think for me, the opportunity that's at hand and what we need is somebody who can step into this, right, and do what we ask of him, and also advise us in where things get a little sticky or not sticky. Do I believe Mr. Smith can do the job or Mr. Aaron can do the job? I believe both of them can do the job, right? Those were my two top picks. But I also believe that there's a greater representation of the job itself than just certain aspects of the job, right? Or that we've covered or we talked about. And so for me, I feel like even in the interviews, Mr. Aaron was able to articulate and, take the time to answer some of these things in ways that the other candidates didn't. We've seen full answers. We've seen track record. We've seen a lot of things being articulated from him that set him apart from the other two candidates. And being able to explain and fight for communities, right? Not just like doing the day-to-day stuff, but fight for communities. in Texas, right? We've seen some of that stuff with Mr. Aaron. And so for me, I feel really confident in my decision with choosing Mr. Aaron. And I say that because, you know, I know one of the individuals who came up here and said, you can't just ask us to trust you. And this is one of those things where at some point, we're going to have to, the rubber meets the road, and we're going to have that understanding of how trust is built. And it feels like this commission has been pretty, you know, pretty good at trying to do the right thing. Have we got things wrong? Sure. Has the community got things wrong? Sure. Are we still learning and growing and knowing how to do this? Yes. But I feel like when it comes to trust, it's one of those fragile things where restoration needs to happen and healing needs to happen, but trust can't solely be built on if a decision is made where somebody's opinion is appeased or somebody's heard. It's much more than that. There's a lot of building in trust. It's much more than just, you know, picking the right candidate, let's say just for today. It's much more than that. And so I just want to encourage us, because trust is a hard thing to establish. Trust is a hard thing to rebuild. And we have to give way in opportunities for this two-way street to happen, right? And so I just encourage us to turn to wonder, right? To dig deep and say, okay, let's look at the total perspective of what's happening, right? And that position is just a tough position. And you want a good, qualified individual who can do the work and have the ability to challenge systems, right? And so I just wanted to share those comments because I believe it's worth it, right?
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Commissioner Huffman.
Thank you. And so for me, you heard some things that I didn't hear with Mr. Leal. For me, we need someone who is going to be bodacious, going to be creative, is willing to bend to get things done. And Mr. Smith was open at the meet and greet. He was very transparent. He talked about intention. He talked about teamwork. He talked about communication. And he's already committed to this city. And so when I think about what our community needs now, we need someone who is not afraid to go to community and get to know our community, get to know our organizations in a way that I have not seen since I've been in Kalamazoo. For me, and it was a hard thing, it was prayer and meditation since we had the interviews for myself. And I went back and forth, but at the end of the day, we need someone who is going to be committed to us for the long haul. And I am just not so sure that that is Mr. Leal. Him retiring from Texas, moving back to Michigan and working with Royal Oak, and it's only been a little under 2 years. That concerns me because the longevity is what I'm looking at as well. I know we have a dynamic team within the city attorney's office. I believe that. And so to give someone an opportunity to be that bold person for us, to move our community forward together, the city attorney is not just for us. It is for the entire city. So we need to keep that in mind. And I think this is a big decision. And at this point, I just want to get the ballot.
Other thoughts, commissioners? Commissioner Pradle?
Thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate the dialogue too. I'm married to a marriage and family therapist, so I'm always taught to approach things exactly, how you just did, Commissioner Hoffman, where it's like, I feel. And I think that's one of the things I think you were referencing, Commissioner Juarez, too, about some of the public comments about saying the only person is. Is that the only person in your view You know, there are other viewpoints to how we get to things and how we heard things. And the thing I love about having a body of 7 people with differing levels of experience and different perspectives is we get that, because we might each hear something that somebody else didn't hear. We might get perspective somebody else didn't hear. And after just going through the whole moral courage process and learning about how to best have this community dialogue and build that trust, the best way is to come at it from that marriage and family therapist perspective of saying that this is my perspective and this is where I'm coming from, and trying to understand where we each other are coming from. I love this commission for that reason, so I just wanted to share that. If it's okay, I'm going to just kind of go through really quickly, starting with each candidate and just some of the notes, because I have gone through exhaustively through these people and reviewed tape and all that sort of thing with these individuals. I'll start off with Mr. Stein. I think a very impressive individual. I think one of the things I remember when it was like that aha moment with him was when he said, something unique about me is the fact that I've been in both public and private type entities, so I can understand when I see a contract or whatever. He also has Kalamazoo ties. He worked for Forensic Fluids, which is on the north side, for a couple years as well. He also has global and multi-state experience in law, which is pretty cool. But the thing is I thought his focus was very narrowly focused. He only has 4 years experience working for the law department of Detroit in FOIA work, which is very vitally important to the city attorney's work. But it's so vastly bigger than that, you know, and so for me, in my view, that removed him from the taking. I felt I could get excited about either of the other 2 candidates. And I think one of the things that I think they both have ties to Michigan, strong ties to Michigan, strong desire to be in this area, strong desire to be focused in Michigan municipal law. And then I think they also, you know, just have incredible stories. Like during the meet and greet, Mr. Smith talked about how, why representation matters. He talked about an example of him remembering playing with Tonka trucks on his floor and seeing on TV a black lawyer or judge he couldn't remember, and saying, turning to his mom and saying, Mom, someday I'm going to be that. And that was a defining moment to me. That shows why our representation in all forms matters. But we also have to remember that Mr. Leal is a son of migrant workers. You grew up on the Rio Grande Valley, is a Navy veteran who got his chops in learning about being around people different than him in the United States Navy, serving his country. He talked about that in question 18. I think, you know, in terms of Mr. Smith, he has 16 years collective experience in terms of municipal law in different facets, starting back in 1986, going all the way to 2014. But then we're going to see also, there are the things that kind of raised some red flags in that, in his particular case was, you know, there was a gap, you know, in terms there that I didn't feel like I got as deep of an explanation. And then the more recent gap of employment as well, you know, just raised a red flag to me. And red flags are okay, right? I think it was really impressive that he was a part of community benefits ordinance, and he was part of DPS's LGBT policies at Detroit Police Department. I thought those were pretty impressive. I also think, you know, something that we need to consider as, you know, an entity as well is of the last 3 to 4 jobs that he had, one of them he remained in for 6 months. One of them remained in for 10 months. One of them he remained in for 4 months. And I mean, those are less time periods than we've actually been in the city attorney search. So that's concerning to me, you know. But I also recognize that these have been unique times. You know, we've been post-pandemic. Those 3 years have been in a time period where employments look different. So getting to Mr. Leal, he's been a city attorney for the last 6 consecutive years, including to current. He has managed people in that role, both in Royal Oak and in Denton. He has 25 combined years of municipal law experience. You know, I think it's also important to mention that since he's been a city attorney for the last 6 years, a lot has changed in municipal law in the post-pandemic world. I mean, ARPA, so federal funding and all those considerations to take. Marijuana, and environmental and regulatory changes, like our water system and how the water system's getting regulated, and environmental considerations are way different than they were 2-3 years ago. Policing changes, economic development, social drinking districts, even the way the Open Meetings Act works. Those have all changed in the last 2 to 3 years. So to have somebody come in who has not been practicing recently in municipal law, they're at a disadvantage, in my book. I think another thing is he's had a limited time at Royal Oak. He hasn't been there very long either, but he also has been a city attorney prior to that in Denton, Texas. He said he wants the role because he wants to be close to family and has roots here. He has had turbulence. He was very transparent about that. When he was in Denton, he talked about how he had a lot of shakeups and challenges, and that can do one of two things to people. That can either bring that toxicity with you because you carry that in what you've been involved in, or it can change you to say, I'm never going to do that again. So I guess we have to ask ourselves that as well. We asked him to talk more about his DEI work, both in the meet and greets, which I wasn't super pleased by, but I will say that in his questioning, in question 8, he said, we asked him, what are the biggest challenges facing the city of Kalamazoo? And I felt like he heard us during the meet and greets. He said, housing discrimination, gun violence, and our community sustainability plan. He said that. He also said, how did his values align with Kalamazoo? He said he believes in community service. I think that's evidenced by the fact that he started his career in the Navy. He said he likes the ability to take risks. He feels like the City Commission has been a body that's demonstrated that willingness. He believes that we respect diversity as a strength, and he believes in teamwork and integrity. And in his question 18, he talked about how he worked on anti-fracking initiatives to fight for the residents of Denton, which we know disproportionately environmental injustices impact marginalized communities. He was at the forefront fighting for that community. He talked about how in Denton they had created 12,000 housing units with unprecedented growth. He talked about how he hired and talked about how the demographics changed on his own team because he recognized the need for that change. So in my opinion, this is my opinion, I believe Mr. Leal is the best candidate for this position. And that's my view, and that's based on dissecting each of these things and looking through them with a fine-tooth comb. And I don't know if I'm perfectly right. We'll find out, right or wrong. But that's how I feel, and that's where I stand on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Decker?
Thank you, Mayor. I enjoyed talking with all of our candidates for city attorney. I do feel that 2 definitely stood out to me. Just kind of me going back through, my notes that I'd taken on each one of them and kind of re-reviewing their resumes. I will say that, again, as Commissioner Pradel said, there are, again, some red flags with Mr. Smith. One would be is that he has not been practicing law for the past 6 months. His last job was in October of 2022, so that kind of stuck out at me too. Also, just being legal counsel is important. Legal counsel is more in an advisory role, where you talk about things and you advise on certain things. I didn't see within his resume or within speaking with him in his interview that he really had the background for the city attorney and some of the things that the city is and will continue to face going forward. I love the fact that he's here in Kalamazoo. I love the fact that he moved here and he wants to continue his life here with his partner. So again, that is an aspect there. You're not thinking about relocation fees and things like that in the time of what it would take for this individual to start. Again, Commissioner Prater, you talked about the time where he was not working. And again, things have changed a lot since, as you said, COVID. I didn't really hear a lot of experience with him. He's going to come in with a staff that has been here for quite some time. I didn't really hear a lot about him, leading a staff or working with a staff or managing a staff. And that's important because as a new individual coming in, as a new city attorney coming in, you do not want to come into an organization and not know how to work with individuals or lead individuals, because then what happens is your knowledge starts to leave. And then we have an individual who is there trying to figure things out on their own. Mr. Leal, again, looking through his stuff, again, he has a very extensive resume. And he was at the city of Texas for 10 years, and he did a lot within those 10 years. And he's always, within that 10 years, and also here at Royal Oak, he has been a city attorney. So he has been in that aspect of that particular job. yes, coming to Royal Oak and only being there 2 years, Royal Oak is expensive to live in. You know, we are a more affordable city, and again, it's being closer to his family in a smaller town. I believe I know who I would choose going forward, but I'm still waiting to hear what everybody else has to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Hess?
Indeed. Thank you, everyone, for putting these things forward. This indeed, like Commissioner Hoffman, I too went to silence and asking in prayer. As I thought about these things, I want to acknowledge our community passion and input and everyone who took the time to get with us, to let us know how they feel about this, as we feel, I feel this, that we should do certain things. I too looked at the resumes, I looked through the interviews again, looked through my notes on the interviewers, on the interviews, evaluation of candidates here. All city attorneys are, what's that? Oh. All city attorneys are bound by state and federal law. And to believe that a city attorney is going to come in and change things that we do here because they're a different thinker, I don't think is possible. Also, city attorneys help the city organization realize its DEI goals. I mean, I know our current city attorney works with Tanya Hewitt-Smith, and he worked with Dora LeBonner to help the city realize its DEI goals and its anti-racist vision. So while acknowledging the community passion and hearing you, I want you to know I hear you. I believe, having listened to Attorney Leal and watched him with the depth of his preparation, with the thoughtfulness of his answers. Yes, there were gaps in what he was thinking. He took time. He took about twice as long to go through those same questions as the other two candidates did, which told me, I just wrote depth. There is a depth to him, a caring about him. Everyone has talked about both the red flags and the positives from each of them, but what stuck out for me is the words he used. It was asked in one of the questions, what are your best accomplishments, right? I pay attention to I versus we. Mr. Leal said he did 2 developments in Denton. He helped develop 12,000 residences. He said we. He never said I did this, that we worked together. We need a city attorney that is able to work together with us, with everyone, to do these things, to get what the city needs. And he said, we got what the city needed in the deal. And then he said, we went to a city manager system in 2017, and that there were siloed departments, and then he went to everyone else and helped them create a positive culture in the city of Denton, Texas. And that he guided the city manager with employment culture. So in terms of his leadership, in terms of his teamwork, in terms of his experience, I would recommend that we hire Attorney Leal. And he does, like Commissioner Pradel said, he did say, Chapter 18, gun violence and youth are really important to him, in addition to the community sustainability plan. And these are important things. He also said, when asked how he would involve himself in the community, he would create a state of the city event, that he would be, like, as commissioners, we are doing listening events throughout the city. He would create a state of the city event from his role. he would meet with all groups, nonprofits, and city and civic groups. He would meet one-on-one right away. He said right away he would meet one-on-one with all the commissioners, with everyone involved. He wants to get a state of this, but I found him to be a team player, and as a career coach, and as a career, I've hired also for folks at Kalamazoo College, and it's important, that level of teamwork, that level of continuous engagement. I would not recommend hiring someone who hasn't done the work, who hasn't been a coach, who hasn't been a professor for the last several years. I can't advocate for that as much as I can advocate how wonderful he is. I would advocate for him to be an attorney in the city attorney's office. I would totally advocate for him to do that, to have the opportunity to learn and to grow in municipal law. But my vote would go with Attorney Leal.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. So, a variety of things here. I guess the way I'll approach my comments is that first I do want to say thank you very much to HR Director Shelley Duzick for bringing us a group of candidates that are worthy of having a robust discussion about. So thank you very much. I guess maybe we could start doing it in-house next time instead of contracting this out. But I appreciate that very much. So this has given us a good opportunity for consideration. And another thing is that obviously it's a little different thing sitting up here and being on the governing board, and frankly, like you said, Commissioner Ware, is the policy setting board for the city of Kalamazoo and the decisions we have to make and the reasons we have to make those decisions. So when we're going through a hiring process, what are the things that you evaluate? Well, you certainly watch through the interview. You watch how comfortable people are, and you weigh that. And actually, some people interview better than other people, but that's one component of how you evaluate someone. Another thing you do is you look for community input, which we have done. As we extended this another 10 days or so to allow for more community input, and I appreciate that Isaac really, mostly more than anyone else in the community, did step up and address that request to provide some community input. Also, you have some conversations with staff. Staff had an opportunity, to meet with these individuals and had some thoughts about that as well, who might be the best fit for the office and what were the needs in the office and that sort of thing, and provide that sort of feedback. One thing that you have, all those items are temporal. They're in a moment. We have a half an hour to talk to somebody or an hour and 15 minutes to have an interview. That's that moment. It's a point in time. But the other thing that we have to look at is a resume, which is a written document that captures a person's work history and their expertise and their competence over an extended period of time. And so at this point, I'm going to talk about, I really am kind of reluctant to get into too much in terms of, multiple resume evaluation. But I will say this, is that now that I've had the opportunity to be in the seat for quite a few years, I'll never try as I might, extend my period here to Vice Mayor Cooney, but I cannot tell you how many issues across a broad range come in front of us and come from our city attorney. And even if you just look at our agenda tonight and look at the range of things that come to us, which many of those things in all kinds of areas require contract evaluation, require input from that city attorney's office and how much comes to our agenda that has been evaluated through the city attorney's office. And as I've sat side by side with this team, in particular the city attorney, as we've gone through things like talking about new work, our entire ordinance related to New business, marijuana ordinances, all the work that happened in our city attorney's office relative to that. A 7-year lawsuit with the townships over an extremely nuanced evaluation of a fact that we were being sued for tens of millions of dollars related to what was being described as inaccuracies in our billing rates, and had great liability there, and watching our city attorney having to be an expert in those areas and help lead us through what was a grueling, fly-specking evaluation of a particular area of expertise on water and sewer rates. And I could go on and on. There are a wide variety of very important and critical issues that we ask our city attorney to pay attention to on this seat. And I feel like it's my responsibility sitting here, all things being equal, to absolutely pick the person who is the most qualified, the most ready, demonstrated the most experience to tackle those issues. So let me get back to the all things being equal category. And this is, I think, what we're most talking about tonight and what was raised tonight. And that's this idea that, if nothing else, part of this consideration, and maybe one of the primary components of this consideration, has been to be around the idea of equity, of doing things differently, of not doing the same old, same old. And serious topic and timely topic, and one that we talk about on a regular basis. But even though perhaps he doesn't lead with it, it just so happens that the person who has 17 years of continuous municipal experience, progressive responsibility, a total list of a variety of complicated issues that he's led through, which is what the role of this person is, leading a group of people in the city attorney's office, also has something cooked into his bones and his genetics. He is a person who, very humble beginnings, parents were migrant fruit pickers and vegetable maybe, participate in that, was part of that. To me, he's got an understanding that he brings to that enriches and informs his legal experience. So relative to all that and how important this position is, I feel that there, is one person that is particularly qualified and noteworthy, that we're lucky to have applied for this position. I had a wonderful conversation with Mr. Smith, had an opportunity to interact with him informally, a very engaging person. I just do want to mention that the last time he did any municipal work at all was over 8 years ago. It's been 8 years. That's a big, big time to step away from doing this work. And yes, other things have been accomplished during that time, but the tenure on those things, for the most part, has been less than a year. I'm glad he's in Kalamazoo. I look forward to getting to know him in a variety of ways, but I think for the sheer responsibility and our responsibility that Mr. Leal is the individual who can step into this role and fulfill this role. And I just want to remind all of us again, we've talked about, we've talked a little bit tonight as if our city attorney just goes out and does what he wants to do on his own. That's not how this job works. If we want, the city attorney works for us, and if there are particular things we care about, then it is incumbent on us to make sure that is utterly apparent to whoever sits in this seat. So that is who I will be supporting, is Mr. Leal for this choice. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to say that I deeply respect your positions, and that honest people can disagree. And I think you make very strong arguments. My argument is, I believe that Mr. Smith has the competence to do the job. And I believe that at this point in our history of this city, he has the life experience and the record of commitments to the issues that are most important that we face in this city now. That's one reason. And the second is that I believe that the face of the city that he will present to the community will be outstanding. It would be welcoming, authentic, and caring, and I think that that would make a huge difference in the community.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Hoffman?
Thank you. I just want to echo what you said, Vice Mayor. You know, this is such a pivotal point for us as a commission and as a city. We have an opportunity to do something great. Commissioner Prater, you said representation matters. And in our community right now, Black and brown folk are the ones who are under attack and do not have that representation. And so let me be clear in saying, I believe Mr. Leal is a wonderful man, and his resume speaks for itself. However, when he had a chance to speak up, I didn't get that. So I'm saying today, I am going to ride with Vice Mayor, and my selection will be for Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. So I'll make a suggestion here. Shall we ask the clerk to pass ballots around? And I guess I'm proposing at this point is that we just check one box on the ballot. Is that okay? This will all be public. Yeah, so reminder, you have commissioners and Vice Mayor, you have a ballot. Write your name on the top. We can pass them around here. Yes, Clerk Burling, are you ready?
Yes, in no particular order, just the way they fell. Commissioner Hess voted for Mr. Leal. Commissioner Prado voted for Mr. Leal. Commissioner Juarez voted for Mr. Leal. Mayor Anderson voted for Mr. Leal. Commissioner Decker voted for Mr. Leal. Commissioner Hoffman voted for Mr. Smith. Vice Mayor Cooney voted for Mr. Smith. 5 votes for Mr. Leal, 2 votes for Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Clerk Boiling. So at this point, our next step would be to make a motion. And the motion is consideration of a motion to direct the City Attorney Recruitment Subcommittee to begin contract discussions with Mr. Leal, with the understanding that a draft contract will be submitted to the City Commission for formal approval if all due diligence investigation steps are completed satisfactorily and agreeable terms and conditions of employment can be reached. Would someone like to make that motion?
So move.
Motion made by Commissioner Juarez,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Decker. Discussion, Commissioners? Commissioner Prano?
Yeah, I just, again, wanted to thank everyone for the dialogue and just to convey again how much I respect both of you and Commissioner Hoffman and Vice Mayor Cooney. Appreciate you being bold to share how you feel and, not only the first round of comments, but the second time. And, I can totally understand and see where you're coming from because we had two people who rose to the top who are incredibly talented, gifted people. And the good news is that in either case, there's going to be young boys and girls who will look up and say, well, I see somebody who maybe looks like me that they didn't see before. And so that, in my book, is a win for the city of Kalamazoo. So thank you. And thank you to community as well for taking the time and input because it was very clear that people didn't just brush and read through notes. People reviewed videos. People came to meet and greets, and that matters, and it definitely improves the process. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to just reiterate the weight of our positions, right? I believe just like, myself, that my colleagues go to bed every night thinking about the city, thinking about if we made the right decision. Last time I made a comment, and my prayer was that we would filter all of our decisions through that God filter in us, right? And people, like I used to be a critic of people who used to sit up here. But then when I got up here, it was different. It was different for me. I had to take into consideration the things I did not understand, the things that I weren't privy to that helped formulate a good decision. And I commend my colleagues up here for having to take that with you and to go to bed with that every night and having to wake up every morning and saying, am I doing the right thing? And there's no doubt we represent a greater body of people in this community. And it is not with light thought that we come to these conclusions up here. It's not with a willy-nilly understanding. It's with the regard of knowing that the generations to come are going to be affected by our decisions. And we have to live with that. And so, I commend you guys for taking the time in processing, in meditating, in praying about this. Super important. And for me, this is a win for trust. When we can have open dialogue, when we can have, discussions where it's not made about our differences, but we come together and we have to move forward now at this point. And so I just want to celebrate you guys for the hard decisions you have to make on this dais.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Any other discussion? Clerk Boiling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Decker?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman?
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez?
Yes.
Thank you, Commission. The motion passes. Now we have the opportunity for commissioner comments. Is there anyone who'd like to start off with that this evening? Vice? No. Thought you were reaching for the microphone. Anyone in particular? All right.
No, I would just...
Commissioner Hess?
Yeah, I would just like to end with gratitude again to my colleagues up here. In thinking about diversity, we are diverse. We are age diverse. We are thought diverse. We are racially diverse. We are gender diverse. And I appreciate you. And I appreciate sitting here with you in this process on behalf of the people of Kalamazoo, because I know everyone's heart up here, and everyone's heart up here is with the people in Kalamazoo, and we do go to sleep thinking about the city of Kalamazoo every night and its people. So I appreciate this process. I look forward to the shift and allowing City Attorney Robinson to actually retire. And I do appreciate your work, Attorney Robinson. And that the city attorney is, while a legal force, they are a face, and he is a face. He is a DEI face. When we talk about black and brown people, he's brown. And I appreciate all of the people that applied and went through this process. And it was very difficult, but that's where I am. And another thing that really pushed me over the edge with Mr. Leal, at the end, he did have thoughtful questions for us. He wanted to know several things from us. But then when Mayor said anything else, he said, yes, thank you very much. He was the one person who thanked us for the interview. And I appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. I just want to remind us, looking at our agenda here, that we do have a closed session that we'll need to go into to discuss labor negotiations, and some closed sessions we adjourn and go into the closed session. This is not one of those closed sessions. So I know that there's some sporting event that I think is going to start in about 10 minutes, 8 minutes? Okay. So perhaps it will not be a long discussion of labor negotiations, but we're going to have to go into closed session, we're going to vote to go in closed session, and then we're going to come back out to take action. So any other comments at this point before? Can I have a motion to go into closed session?
So move.
Motion made by Commissioner West, supported by Commissioner Decker.
Aye.
Can we just do a voice vote? Roll call. Thank you, City Attorney. Law requires roll call. Okay.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes?
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we're going into closed session, and we will be coming back into open session when we are done with that.
she comes.
Good to see you, Commissioner Decker. Okay, we are now officially back out of closed session. In open session, we don't have to take any official action on that, right? Attorney Robinson?
Yes, Mayor, the motion.
Okay. So we do have to, and here's the motion coming our way. Attorney Robinson.
The motion would be to approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Kalamazoo Municipal Employees Association for the period of January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2025.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez.
Second.
Supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Any discussion?
No.
Well,
Roll call.
the only discussion is,
Thank you, Shelley, for the work.
thank you to Shelley for
Thank you,
doing this
Shelley.
work, and to
Okay.
the
Thank
team.
you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Yes.
Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Praedel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, good people. The motion passes. Now, I'm going to suggest something at this point. Is it possible that we may hold on commissioner comments till our next meeting, or are there people that feel they have commissioner comments that need to be made this evening?
Absolutely.
So move.
Support.
All in favor? Aye.
You, okay. I love you, Kalamazoo. We're adjourned. Basketball game started 5 minutes ago. Final NCAA.